What's up, guys?
What's up?
Welcome back to the channel. So, Overwatch Season 3 tier list. Here's mine. Let's go ahead and get started. So, let's start from the bottom and work our way up to the best character. So, this is a character you guys should all avoid. And this comes from someone who used to play Overwatch 1 and climbed to Grandmasters playing Roadhog. Roadhog gets his own tier. He is so incredibly bad.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
They did this character so dirty with the most recent update to Roadhog.
Look how they mess with my boy.
Yeah, he has no place legit in the game other than on like very specific maps. I'm talking about like while he's playable, because there's a little hole and you just hook him and you sink him. That's it. That's like the only time I'd ever even consider playing Roadhog for the most part. Other characters just do his job better. He is absolutely worthless for the most part because of the changes, so he cannot one-shot. Now, that was kind of healthy for the game. I will admit that, like, just one-shots in general don't really work too well in a team-based game. However, the thing is that they didn't give him anything else in return. Like, you know how they changed Mercy and a lot of people were upset? Mercy has, like, double the cooldown. If Hog at least received double the cooldown, he could still be Roadhog. But because he can't, like, one-shot, what are you supposed to do? To give everyone, hey, you get ult charge, you get ult charge, the whole team gets ult charge, I get nothing else in return other than, like, a 0.02 fire rate increase. Absolutely, this character just got shafted by the update, and he got nothing in return.
That is so unfair!
But there is light at the end of the tunnel for our boy Roadhog, because there is supposed to be a rework. They're getting a change to something, and they're going to have to animate it. So I'm guessing he gets some new ability, which hopefully will be actually good. So moving on to the D tier. Like I said, Hog gets his own tier. Now we're in the D tier, which really comes down to the characters having better options. You can see, press F for my Genji that just died over here. He's in this tier. So pretty much, there are better options in most situations. You could argue, yeah, Mei on very specific maps, like let's say King Rose defense first point, sure, she could be okay for that. But for the most part, there are lots of other characters that can get the job done a little bit better. I know there's not really a character that can make a wall, but I just think there's better options at the end of the day versus playing Mei in 2023. She's always been kind of a very weird pick. There's not that many people at the very high ranks that can play her other than like Yugioh, but other than that, unless he's playing Mei, yeah, you might as well swap and play something else.
I agree.
Next up, though, Sombra. I think Sombra, even with the 0.5 damage increase, there's better options overall. I was actually recording some Sombra gameplay, and I'm like, this character is still pretty bad.
My disappointment is immeasurable.
She literally didn't even get 1 damage upgrade. She got 0.5 damage. She got half a damage.
Are you kidding me? That is insultingly low?
Which, yes, it adds up. If you get a headshot, that's actually, you know, 1 damage. But overall, there's better options to get picks as characters, unless you really want to, like, troll in really low-rank games where you're spawn killing someone just to make them upset and then you teabag them. Other than for, like, creating weird content, I'd say stay away from Sombra. Moira is also in this tier. There are just better options available. Yes, Moira can put up very high numbers, and I've always mentioned this, but for the most part, those numbers really don't matter. Landing a sleep, landing an anti-popping, like, Kiriko ult compared to a Moira ult. Like, there's no DPS ult where it's like, you pop Moira ult and you think, oh, I'm going to be able to trade a Genji blade, or I'm going to be able to trade a soldier visor. Like, it's just super unrealistic, whereas Nano and Kiriko's ult just have a lot better places in the game right now for the support category. There's just, again, better options all around. Doomfist, you guys know, he's one of my favorite characters, but it's too hard to build up the punch at the higher ranks. For low ranks, I think that there's still better options available versus playing Doomfist and just punching in. Like, you could play low rank Reinhardt and just swing around and get way more value than playing Doomfist. And that is simply due to towards basically diamond up, you sit here and you just look like an idiot because no one charges your punches. It's really hard to charge the punch. I think Genji has really fallen off, especially since the new buffs of Soldier and McCree. Those characters are receiving a lot more play, and then on top of that, Genji got nothing. So they buff the other characters that dunk on Genji, because Genji has to get up close to be effective, right? Symmetra, again, there's just better options. It's kind of a niche pick too, but next up, I'm going to move into my next category, which is going to be the C tier. So there are two, technically, like, I have 2 boxes for C tier. They're in the exact same category, just so I didn't have to stretch the tier list super far to the right, making, you know, all the characters in like 1 row, if that makes any sense. So both of these C niche map, they're the exact same tier here. Okay, so I really feel like Lucio over here, he hasn't really received any big changes, and I got a buff more recently, and we'll talk more about that, but there hasn't been really any change with Lucio, although since Ryan did get buffed, sometimes people like to play Ryan plus Lucio. Lucio is still very good, but he's more of a niche pick, I would say, than a consistent solid and a Kiriko. Diva didn't really get any changes. She's been always kind of like, okay, on certain maps, like if you're playing Numbani or any map that has high ground that you want to contest, Usually people prefer to play Monkey anyways, but Diva is still like an okay pick. She's not like terrible.
I mean, it's alright, like...
But next up, Echo, no changes really at the end of the day with that. Now, Ball, I put Ball under niche because I think Ball, he can easily be S tier. If you have a good Ball, sure. But then there's still people that are really bad with Ball, and then like they're kind of bad. So if this is in C tier, it's like if you're really good with these characters, they're basically A or S tier. But not everyone is great with that. A lot of times people, they see Ball, they're like, please switch off Ball. Your Ball's doing nothing.
Please! Please! No!
So, I put Ball in that category. Same thing with Junker Queen. It's the exact same thing. Like my Junker Queen, I just dropped some gameplay recently, and you guys check it out. I just absolutely obliterate people.
I'm the real hero.
Basically, if the enemy team doesn't have Ana, I could legitimately roll through like the lobbies, even at like the top 10% of the players. Junker Queen is just absolutely amazing. The new buffs that she has received are good for my playstyle, but then again, you do get those Junker Queens just like Ball, where they just feel like that they're doing nothing for the team, and they're basically throw picks, right? Next up, Baptiste over here. He hasn't received any changes. I just feel like his damage on range is kind of bad. I'd say Zen is a little bit better if you kind of like the hybrid DPS playstyle of like DPS / support. So I put him under that category. But Brig did get a change. The Brig changes, sure, they're okay. I'm kind of curious to see what happens with Brig as she is getting some sort of rework on her ultimate. But nonetheless, Zen, Brig, those are like niche map dependent. Same thing with like Pharah, Bastion, nothing new with them. Zarya got a small little buff, but she's just very rarely picked nowadays. It's literally 1 second on the cooldown, and that changed her from becoming like, you know, really good just to C tier. It's crazy just like how a 1 second nerf can affect a character quite drastically. But it's because she has 2 bubbles, so each bubble has like a nerf on it, if that makes sense. But it was literally a 1 second change. So moving up over here into the B tier. So again, just like the C tier, there's 2 technical categories here for it, but at the end of the day, they're in the same category. They're not in any order here. So I put Ashe over here. Ashe originally had like in the A tier really solid, but since Soldier and the McCree got a buff, I'm just gonna move her down a little bit. I think that those characters are just overall a little bit better since McCree had the increase in range. And it's just because when you're aiming down sights, a lot of times you're just gonna be a little bit slower. And since Kiriko is so incredibly meta, Kiriko just dunks on a lot of the like characters that move slower when they're scoping down, like, you know, Widow. Ashe would be excellent examples of that. But I still think she's good. He's just a solid pick. Same thing with Tracer, no changes there. No changes with Reaper. Ramontra got his ult nerf, so I moved him down from A to B. That ultimate really made the character very powerful, but since now sometimes it only lasts, it feels like it legit lasts like 5 seconds, unless someone's like right next to you at the start. I feel like how they should have done it maybe should have been like you have a max duration of 20 seconds, but now it drains, and then it has a 3 second like duration, but it drains so fast when you just get booped back by like one thing. So I'm gonna put him in the B tier. His ultimate really lost out, but he's still really good. I still think he's a viable pick. He's not a throw pick by any means. Winston, he did take a nerf, but I'd still say he's a pretty solid pick overall. Junkrat got in a small nerf with mine. He's still a pretty solid pick on very specific maps too. Same thing with Torb. Torb took a small nerf, but it doesn't really affect the character's like identity, right? Whereas Roadhog, he lost his entire identity. He's basically worthless. But you can see I'm just a little bit salty with Roadhog, because like with all the other characters, at least you can still do what they are meant to do. Like Junkrat can still spam, but Roadhog, because you can't like hook, it just becomes unplayable. Like Torb, he took 25 health nerf on his turret, which you could still play the character. Now Ryan did get some buffs, so I moved for up Ryan, where I would say Ryan, if you're really good with the character, sure, you can play him, but the biggest nerf or biggest change with Reinhardt was actually most of the characters actually got their ultimate charge decrease, but I didn't mention that on this because most of them are just like a 7% increase or a decrease on their ultimate charge rate. But for Reinhardt, he did take a nerf in that department, which is not really that big of a deal, but Fire Strike doing 10 more damage was actually a big buff for Reinhardt, allowing him to potentially throw 2 Fire Strikes and 1-shot targets. If you combo it with Baptiste, that's where it becomes Baptiste being niche, and then you can actually just 1-shot people that are 200 HP targets because you happen to have the Baptiste wall. So that was kind of a thing that I think is actually pretty dang good to combo with. And then on top of that, he has hammer rate, doesn't push the targets that far away. Mercy took a nerf, but what makes Mercy so good, and this is mostly at the higher ranks of the game, when you see Widow and Hanzo or any characters that can do 1-shots, she becomes a lot better. Also facilitating the pocket on Sojourn is just still very powerful, so Mercy is still like a very viable and playable character at the end of the day. Now we're going to the A tier, the characters that I would recommend you guys to go ahead and pick up. So some of these actually just got changed for the most recent update. So in Season 3, we got Soldier and McCree. So Soldier's got less recoil. Check out the gameplay. I've already got gameplay of Soldier. We would drop McCree gameplay very soon, or Cassidy. His range got changed, and it is very noticeable. A good Cassidy player will absolutely dominate with the newer buffs. Sojourn, not really any big changes with Sojourn. She took a nerf, but she's still very, very viable. And then Sigma Orisa, I feel like, are the go-to tanks at the moment, just because Ramattra kind of lost a lot of the power with his ultimate, where Sigma and Orisa are just going to be very solid picks. Even though Orisa did take a nerf, she's still a very, very powerful tank, and it's not like whenever you select Orisa, people are like, oh no, we got an Orisa. People are just like, alright, we got Sig or Orisa. It's like workable in most team compositions because you can play hyper aggressive with Orisa, and you need to now because of the range drop off. And then with Sigma, I think Sigma is actually one of the best tanks in the game at the moment. If you know how to play him, like, put him in the A tier, because if you face off against a really good Sigma, it feels like no one's getting damage done. It's really awkward when he just goes suck and he rotates the shield in between. And if you just play off of those cooldowns, he could be a very annoying tank to actually play up against. So that's why I put Sigma. Now, some of these characters, it's basically the two snipers. Okay, so I want to talk about this, and this is the S tier. This is where I put the characters on that need a nerf. So Kiriko's hitbox, okay, she's way too tiny. Her Suzu, her Bell, doesn't need to give immortality. It just needs to cleanse, maybe a small heal, but it shouldn't make people just invulnerable to everything. It's just way, way too powerful. A lot of top streamers agree with me on this, and it's just something that I just think her hitbox is actually too small.
Ooh, that's kind of small.
But I know right now for Season 3, this is the Battle Pass skin. They probably didn't want to nerf her. But best believe Season 4, they're probably not going to nerf Kiriko because of her pick rate. It's just so through the roof in the game. Now, as far as Ana goes, the Sleep Dart hitbox is way too generous. That's what I want nerfed on Ana, is the Sleep Dart hitbox. You could be like almost a whole character model away, and the Sleep Dart, nah bro, she hit you. It's so unfair. That thing, legit better than the homing missile that McCree gets. It's so insane how generous the hitbox on the Sleep Dart is. So that's what I want nerfed with the two supports. Now, as far as Widow and Hanzo, I think they need a nerf, because like if their whole philosophy is like, bro, we've got a team-based game, we're not allowed to have one-shots. Roadhog at least has a range. Hanzo, Widow, bro, what is range?
That just makes no sense.
I could one-shot you. I can go for a jump shot where like the shields don't even matter. It basically sets up the dynamic for a team-based game not to be a team-based game anymore with those two characters. So what should be changed? I don't know. Should they be able to still one-shot at a lower rate? Should they have something else change? I don't know. But like once you start playing and watching the higher ranks of Overwatch, it doesn't even become a game about like, you know, playing together with a team. It's like, yo, if you play Junkertown, which I'm going to drop some gameplay of, it doesn't even matter what the entire team plays. Whoever has the better Widow or Hanzo absolutely dominates these very long line of sight maps. And again, if their whole philosophy on you're not allowed to one-shot with, let's say, Sojourn, which Sojourn has to charge up. I mean, yeah, let's be honest, it doesn't take that long to charge up. But if the whole idea is Sojourn, she can't one-shot, it's not our philosophy of the game. Roadhog got nerfed, it's not the philosophy of the game, right? Hanzo, Widow, how did they bypass it? They're special. They can do whatever they want.
I can do whatever the f I want.
They avoid the core philosophy of a team-based game, right? Because it doesn't matter how good you are as support or tank. If the Widow just jumps up in the air, gets a shot or two, and just kills like one or two players, like you just have to GG reset, right? You have to play around the Widow, and she just completely changes up the dynamics of very certain maps like Circuit Royale. If there's a good Widow, again, it just feels like you feel helpless no matter what role you play, unless you're like Widow v Widow. It just becomes a game where it's like, who's got the better one? That's the way I see it, though. So, I'm not sure. Well, I don't really have any suggestions for Widow and Hanzo, because if you remove their one-shot capabilities, you literally put them at the same level as Roadhog, which... Rip Hog. But I don't want to make this video too long. Let me know you guys' thoughts on my tier list. If you disagree, I'd love to know why as well. And also, what do you think of like Widow and Hanzo? How would you guys change them? Would we make them so they're more like... Would Widow be more like a DMR character, kind of like Ashe, or same thing with like Hanzo, where it takes like two arrows to kill, or maybe 2 Widow shots, but she fires faster. She's got new abilities. Maybe she can climb on the wall like a spider and hang. That would be kind of cool too, right?
Write that down, write that down!
Because that was kind of in her... I mean, she has the ability in the, like, one of the highlight intros to hang backwards down, and it looks sweet, but you can't do it in a real game. So maybe they could do something really cool with Widow, make her more like in a spider category. Spider-Man Widow, confirmed. That's going to be on the next Battle Pass. Okay, but anyways, that's my thoughts on the most recent update for Overwatch 3 Season 3, and that's my recommended tier list for characters that you should play and avoid via this one over here. But anyways, thanks for watching. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. If you're new here, hit subscribe, turn the bell, because once we get that Roadhog buff, which I think is coming out pretty soon, I'll show you guys some gameplay high tier Roadhog, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one. I'm signing out. Peace.